Okay, so today I have a little bit of time to make some videos about me growing orchids on a tree bark or tree trunk or tree trimming, oops, whichever you want to call it. So I took these cuttings of the orchids that I originally have, and I basically just tie moss and I'm tying the moss around. Well, this one is not doing. Yeah, so basically I took a tree stump or a trimming of a tree that I took, trim off the tree. I basically tie the moss and the orchid cutting to the tree stump or the bark or the twigs, and then I took a plastic water bottle and I just wrap it around to create condensation. And because I leave these orchids outside, I'm in California, and so the weather isn't too extremely cold, but I also know that orchid is very resilient, and so they can grow. So basically what I had done is I put the at the bottom I had a pot here to hold a pot of soil, and underneath it I grew some seedlings of flowers. These flowers are very they don't grow very tall, so basically I'm cheating. I have this pot with soil and some rocks, and then I have these little white daisies growing and yellowish flowers that is going to grow and bloom during the spring. So I have here is one trimming, two trimming, and this is the third trimming. So these orchids are resilient enough to where I leave them outside, and I just gave it some water. As you can see that the moss is a little bit wet, and this water bottle, believe it or not, create the condensations that it needs, and it keeps some moisture at the base of the orchid, so that way it will take root. And the good part of it is that it's been out here and we have a bunch of frost, or a bunch of because it's in the winter time, and so we do have frosting, we do have weather changes and cold. I'm actually wearing a very thick jacket right now because it's like 40 degrees, right? But because it's under a bigger tree and it's also somewhat protected and it has filter light, it's absolutely loving it out here. And as you can see it in the leaves, because it's not being burned by the sun, and it has enough filter light to where it's actually producing roots and growing for me. As you can see here, here's an air root, right? It's doing great. And as you can see over here where it's really hard to record, it's actually formulating air root. So this means that if it has air root, this means that it is very healthy and happy, and that what I'm doing down here, which protecting the bottom of the plant, and as you can see here, it's actually growing towards it, wrapping itself, and it's growing up straight. So by having air root produced on the top here, this meant that this, if I take off these moss or this thing that I wrap it in, I'm gonna be able to see roots at the bottom where I have covered it with the plastic bottle here. And by having the bottle here, when I water it, it creates condensation. It also creates a layer of protections, and it also gives the roots warmth. Warm enough for it to go root, but it's still being out. It's still sit outside. it's getting very cold, so I really need to go inside. But let me just kind of explain about this a little bit. So I have here is a piece of orchid that it's actually broke off from my other plant, and I just did not want to throw it away. And so it only had 2 leaves, but as you can see, it grew another leaf up here. So what I did was that I took some growth hormones and I soaked the bottom to the growth hormones, and the top part I just leave it to dry. But it actually is growing a leaf here, a leaf over here, and a leaf here. So basically I have this bark, this twigs, or this orchid piece with literally 2 leaves that broke off of my original orchid. And I just don't want it to throw it away, because I was like, if I could save it, I want to save it. So I have baby it a little bit, given it some growth hormones, and then I put it towards the bottom. I used my twigs here for support, so that way it knew to just, adapt to this little twig here and just grow with the support. And basically I wrap moss at the bottom where it was injured, and I put growth hormone moss, and I cover it with the bottle that I cut. Now as I water it, it creates a little layer, creating condensations, creating a little bit of environmental protection for it. And as you can see, by producing new leaves here, and it hasn't turned yellow and dead, I just discovered that I was able to root the cutting of the orchid. So it's very, very exciting for me to learn. I mean, I did not know this prior to doing all of this, is because having growing orchids dying on me, that's like crazy, right? And now I discover this little trick that I have. And prior to wrapping the moss around it, I had actually wrapped paper towel on the bottom of the orchid here. So a little baby paper towel, and then put the moss on top of the paper towel, wrap it tightly into the tree trimming, and then just let it grow. And I've done this for like, I think a month now, less than a month, and coming back out to see that it's surviving the weather, to see that it's like growing and it's even producing air roots, and that the leaves are fantastic and it's green, and on top of that is producing new leaf, is very rewarding. Even though it doesn't give me flowers yet, but it just allowed me to say, hey, I did it, and it is actually liking it and it's growing. So I'm very happy to say that you can grow almost anything if you put your mind to it. So good luck, take care, stay safe. Let me know if you have any question. And I just cannot wait for these orchids to bloom and have flowers for me, because I know it's gonna be beautiful.